Hey, hey. Thanks for being here. I want to look at the emotional side of eating skills, stuff that you might need to plan for. And whilst you're unlearning overeating and doing work on your eating psychology, it's some people find it very, very steadying, very safety creating to plan exactly what you're going to eat. But I'm always really interested in you planning to improve one of your emotional eating skills, your skills of unlearning emotional eating. And there's quite a few things you could work on. So I'm just going to suggest a few here. Let me bring this camera in and see if you can see that. Okay. So simple things I could plan for might be something like getting undistracted whilst I'm eating. And when I'm coaching with somebody, we might take a week or so just working on one of these habits, because each of these habits is a little system in itself that has a bunch of thoughts and emotions and mental chatter around it, and takes a bit of self-talk and encouragement to get yourself doing it. And we might even do hypnosis. For example, the idea of eating sitting down, we might do a little hypnosis, just 10 minutes, really imagining ourselves doing that, really building up the benefits, really making that into something we want to do that feels natural to us by mentally rehearsing it with hypnosis, right? We might work on diminishing binges. Binges have a whole will have a whole load of little habits and patterns that create them. And each person's way of binging is a little bit different. Some people really plan ahead and think through, like, have the idea, be sitting at work and think, I'm going to binge later. I'm looking forward to it. I'm all by myself, and start to plan it that way. Or other people might tell themselves they're not going to, but then have like a taste of one thing and then like say to themselves, I'm just going to have a little bit, and then it snowballs and they're having more and more and more. They sort of go into a bit of a trance with it. There's lots of different ways it can happen. Actually, binging isn't one thing for everybody. And working on diminishing binges is exactly this process, really, of pulling apart all of the micro habits that create that and working on them bit by bit. And this is why we don't rush the process. This is why doing something lifelong is so powerful, because if we work on it in a lifelong way to create systems around it, then you're just massaging it so that it's better and better and better. But we have the patience to do that. We have unlimited time. We have our whole lives. We don't need to be perfect tomorrow. We're just noticing ourselves moving in the right direction. When we were building this house here in Cornwall, our builders were, really not in a hurry. And we were living in with my mum. That was a lot of pressure. And then we were living in rental accommodation. And stuff was slowing us down, lockdown, and so many things. And I just kept thinking to myself, people would ask me as well, when's the house going to be finished? Do you know when it's going to be finished? When are you moving in? And I never had any idea. I would just have to say, so long as we're moving in the right direction, that's all I care about. And I actually think that's a really powerful thought with your eating. As long as you're moving in the right direction, nothing else really matters. The rate of progress is not as important as the direction of travel when you're talking in lifelong terms. So let me just list a few of the other things here. Maybe take a moment to read yourself. There's a whole bunch of work that we might do on sensing hunger and fullness. Some of us don't really notice we're hungry until we're starving, or we anticipate getting hungry because we're quite frightened of the feeling of getting hungry and eat preemptively. Some of us don't notice when we're full because we're so used to just kind of blasting through until all the food is gone. It takes a little bit of practice. The signals are there. It takes a bit of practice of listening to your body to tune in to all of that, and encouraging yourself and feeling safe to do that. Disbelieving your brain's excuses. You know, a lot of people have mentioned in the last week or two in sessions with me, oh, my mum always told me I had to, finish everything before I got pudding or whatever. And these kind of false bits of logic, these weird justifications become our brain's way of persuading us to eat when we're not really hungry. Bits of propaganda, really. And actually learning to sort of see them for what they are, just your brain trying to persuade you to get its usual reward, is really helpful. Well, it's an eating psychology skill to become curious and compassionate about mistakes. We have to practice it over and over again. It's completely new to many of us. It's really not how we've done things, you know. And I can talk as the girl who stopped playing clarinet because, you know, I couldn't play, jazz yet. So it was like, if you can't be perfect, don't bother. And how many of us have got that kind of approach to things? It really is really uncomfortable to suck at things, and to be in the middle, to be in the learning, in the messy middle of the learning zone. Um, Feeling our feelings. Feeling feelings is an emotional skill, and we would need to plan, it would be better to be putting our energy into planning, um, to be ready to feel our feelings, planning what we're gonna say to ourselves when we feel overrun, completely hijacked by emotion or anxiety or stress or overwhelm, and to practice, how am I going to talk to myself so that I don't just go into the kitchen and comfort myself with biscuits? Stopping snacking. I mean, if we eat properly, if we feed ourselves properly, maybe snacks are not really necessary. Like sometimes there's a legitimate snack to be had, but a lot of the time, if we stop eating diet salads and eat proper food, our food should hold us for 4 or 5 hours. I mean, not everybody has the same eating pattern, and some people do better on smaller meals. And I'm not an advocate of holding on. Like, if you're somebody who, for example, you eat lunch and then you do your afternoon at work and then you want to go to the gym, I'm not saying like hold on, hold on, hold on, no snacks allowed, because that would be the sort of situation where I would think, gosh, I mean, having a smoothie between lunch and dinner would be an absolute must, having something. And but I'm not talking about that kind of snacking. I'm talking about like snacking for entertainment, snacking when you're not hungry, snacking just to have a break. A lot of our snacking is not really hunger related. It's just emotional stuff. Oh, I've got up here normalizing forbidden foods and being calm around them. Every person will make their own sort of position in relation to sugar and alcohol, um, and like treat food. And but often, in order to feel a bit more take it or leave it about that food, it's worth trying to actually give yourself permission to include some of it. So, for example, maybe I have a client who um, buys things when she shops in the supermarket and eats them on the way home and eats all of it to eliminate the evidence. Now, that suggests to me that that client isn't giving herself full permission to eat it. She's eating it in a kind of liminal space where it doesn't really count. And then she's trying to destroy the evidence. So, it's almost like doing a bit of, having a cigarette behind the bike sheds. We need to bring that kind of eating out into the light of day, onto the radar, and make peace with actually the fact that, well, I really like that food. And I'm telling myself I shouldn't have it, but it's better for me to buy it and have some in front of everyone else, or just even in front of myself sitting down at the kitchen table, rather than having a bit and then eating the whole lot to eliminate the evidence, right? Normalizing is a kind of a process which requires quite a lot of trial and error, and it's best to do with someone else, because if you try it without a coach, what often happens is you bring a lot of your forbidden foods into the house, and then you just overeat them, and then you feel like, see, here's evidence that I can't be trusted around these foods. I'm not doing that again. It doesn't work, and that's not really confidence boosting. We need to eat those foods in a very controlled way, in a very mindful way, in places and amounts which feel very safe, before we experiment with stocking the cupboards full of them. I know, because I did exactly that, and I bought in like 6 packets of chocolate hobnobs, and then every time I opened the cupboard, I saw hobnobs, I ate hobnobs, and it never really got to the point of like, oh, now I'm just fine around hobnobs. Of course, at a certain point, I did create disgust, um, and self-loathing, which stopped me. But that's not really what we're aiming for. We're aiming for like, yeah, it's fine, I can have them whenever I want, so I might have them now, or maybe I'll just plan to have them tomorrow. There's no rush, no pressure. Of course, the superpower is staying patient, just cultivating patience with your whole process and all that's involved, as you go through. So, you know, that's all. That's all, and there's probably more. There's probably a bunch more stuff that I would work on in the eating psychology arena. That Working on one of those things would be very much something that I would be interested in creating systems around, planning around, and gently doing the habit change work around. Much rather you were putting your energy into planning to change a habit than planning to eliminate this, that, and the other, or planning to stick to a certain food combination. For my money, this is much, much more valuable in the long run, because you can go without cheese for a day, and the next day you'll be kind of no better, no more skillful at going without cheese. All you've done is used your willpower. This requires a lot of creativity and ingenuity and patience with self. And that's why it's great to have a coach on board. Yeah. Next, let's look at the practical stuff.